What is going on, everybody? This is Beanie, and welcome back to another player review video. Today, we're going to be going over the National League East team epics, and this might be the weakest out of all of the divisions, which saddens me deeply because I am a huge Braves fan, and I really wish that they had a really great epic worth going for, but he's only kind of mediocre, and that's kind of the case with all of these rewards. They are just kind of mediocre. But let's go through the players anyway and see what grades they get. Okay, starting out with my favorite team, the Braves, we have the 83 overall Warren Spahn, and this is, you know, it's actually a better card than I want to give it credit for initially. Initially, I look at this card and I'm like, oh, this card sucks, I don't want it. But when you look into it, it's actually not that bad of a card. It's really not. It has perfectly reasonable per nines. What is that, a 158? Is that a 153 combined hit and K per nine? Which is fine. You know, that's a fine combined hit and K per nine. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Last year, that would have been perfectly fine. The walk per nine isn't going to kill you. 69, that's better than a lot of the other guys that we've seen. So he's not going to have that many control issues. His stuff is fine. Once again, that's kind of a running theme with this card. It's just fine. He has a 95-mile-an-hour fastball to go with a 91-mile-an-hour sinker. He's got a 12-mile-per-hour delta between his changeup and his fastball. And then he backs it up with a nice little curveball that he throws at 81 that's got good break on it. I presume that that's the pitch that has 86 break on it, which is, you know, perfectly respectable. If they would have given this card, like, maybe a screwball to go along with it, because I know the Warren Spahn did throw a screwball at one point in his career, that may have helped this card, you know, be a little bit better. Or, I don't know, maybe if he had better per nines or he threw a little harder or something. This card just seems to be missing that it factor. But do I think that this card is usable? Yes. I think that if you got this card early in the year, there's a really good chance that he would be a guy that you would want on your team. But do I think that this is a card that's really worth going after? And the answer to that is probably no. Another downside to this card is that he has a really slow delivery that it really seems to annoy people, and I don't know, he's just not incredibly fun to use because of that. So I ended up giving him a fag of a 6.7. Not great, but above average and reasonably good, you know, just kind of a early game type of pitcher. Okay, next up, we have the 84 overall D. Gordon, and I know that this is where a bit of cognitive dissonance comes into play, where I feel a little, like a little bit of self-hypocrisy or something when looking at this card, because my knee-jerk reaction when looking at this card is, oh man, this card is, like, pretty good. Like, he's way better than the Omar Vizquel or the Ozzie Smith or guys like that. Like, I would much rather use this card. But in reality, is he that much better? I don't really know. I mean, yeah, he's got a little bit better speed than those guys, but in really every other respect, he's not as good. Like, he doesn't have as strong of an arm. His fielding isn't as good. He may have, like, slightly better contact, but he also doesn't have any power to go along with it. But still, I look at this card and I see a card that I want. It's very, very odd. But let's just go through the card, you know, piece by piece here. Yeah, obviously fantastic contact, great vision. You're never going to have any PCI problems or anything like that. The big problem, once again, though, is he just does not have much power at all. He's not going to be able to do a whole lot for you on the power front. He has great defense, but he doesn't have that strong of an arm. Now, the arm is kind of mitigated a bit by the fact that he's a second baseman. You don't really need to have that great of an arm at second base. But if you decide to put him at shortstop, that is something that you might want to keep in mind, because that 52 arm strength might end up being a hindrance over there at shortstop. Obviously, the big selling point of this card is his game-breaking speed. He has 95 speed and stealing. That is elite. Once he gets on base, he is a threat to steal second, maybe even steal third, make things happen, create runs. It will also help him defensively. So, what's the bottom line with this card? Whenever I observe this card objectively, I definitely believe he's an above average card, 100%. But is he better than the Ozzie Smith or the Omar Vizquel or the Luis Aparicio? The answer to that question, I think, is no. They're about the same, really. That they have very similar value. So whenever I was grading that, I tried to keep that in mind, and once I did, I ended up giving the D. Gordon an overall fag of a 6.9. A firmly above average card that you're going to have to account for his lack of power. If you can figure out a way to get on base with this card, he's going to be awesome. But finding that way to get on base is going to be the problem. So a fag of 6.9, I feel like that's about right. Next up is the 85 overall Jordan Zimmerman. I believe one of this. In fact, I think this is the only diamond in this division, and it's not a very good one. It's just Jordan Zimmerman tends to have really bad cards that are really overrated in this game. He always seems to have like a diamond, but it's never any good. Because like all the things that make him a good pitcher or made him a good pitcher in real life are things that just don't really translate all that well into MLB The Show, and that's kind of the case with this card. He doesn't have great hit per 9, doesn't have great K per 9. His calling card is really his control. He has fantastic control. You'll be able to hit your spots with him, but that'll only get you so far. You know, his stuff has to be, you know, if you're going to be kind of doing that finesse thing, you have to have like amazing secondary stuff or moving fastballs or something like that. But in reality, he has a very, very flat four-seam fastball that he throws at 94 miles an hour. That's not very difficult to hit. It has no movement on it. It's just very straight, and it's going to get hit pretty hard more often than not. Now, if he had a really great circle changeup to play off of that was at like 80 miles per hour to give him a 14 mile per hour delta, maybe we could talk about something. But the fact is, he throws his changeup at 87. That's only a 7 mile per hour delta. That's not enough. That's not an effective enough pitch to be able to get guys out or get swings and misses consistently. He does have a good slider that you can work in there versus right-handed hitters, and he does have a workable 12-6 curveball that's pretty effective. But overall, I just don't see a pitcher here that's really going to provide a ton of value to you. I think that if you are really, really good at hitting your spots with this guy, he can be somewhat effective, but I don't think... I think he's close to being an average-ish pitcher, but I don't think he quite gets there, and for that reason, I ended up giving him a fag of a 5.8. Okay, next up is the 82 overall Keith Hernandez card, and man, I really hope that they do Keith Hernandez better than this later on in the year. I hope he has a card that's worth buying later in the year, but this is not the card that's worth going after. It is just really, really, really fucking bad. I mean, when I say it all the time, whenever you get your first baseman, you want your best hitter or one of your best hitters as your first baseman. Defensive value is not that important at all at first base. You can get by with a terrible defender over there if you need to. Contact really isn't all that important this year. As you know, it's all about powers. So your best hitters are going to be the ones that usually have the most power. And if you can get contact on top of that, that's even better. But you need to be looking for that power. And this guy just frankly doesn't have any. He's a contact first baseman with good defense, but that defense isn't going to help you out that much whenever you can't hit a home run with this card. You can't hit extra base hits with this card. It's just not that good, man. The lack of power for a first baseman is just such a big, big issue that you just can't get past. This card sucks. I'm not a big fan of it at all. I think it's well below average, and I ended up giving it a fag of a 4.4. Finally, we have the 83 overall Jason Worth, and this card is... It's actually not a bad card, but it's just sort of meh. It's just sort of there. You know, we have outfield usually is a position that you can fill relatively easily. There's usually a good amount of outfielders that you can find that'll be effective for you. And this guy is, you know, he's okay. Like 84 contact versus right, 73 power, pretty decent. 78, 67, pretty decent. Vision's not going to kill you. Good discipline. Out in the field, he's going to be average out there. He's got a big time, well, not a really big time arm. He has a very solid arm to go along with it. He's not super slow. This guy does everything okay. He just doesn't really stand out in any one thing. And, you know, maybe that gives him like a little bit of value, but not a ton. He's obviously an above average player, right? Like, I mean, he hits well. He plays defense relatively well. He runs relatively well. There's not a lot to hate about this card, but there's just not a whole lot to like. So for those reasons, I ended up giving him a fag of a 6.4. I definitely think he's solidly above average, but there's just nothing that really stands out about this card, and no real reason to go and try to grind after this card if you're picking and choosing which team epics to go after. This is obviously not one that you want to do. So, and that sucks, because the Phillies have a lot of really intriguing guys that they could have went with, but Jason Worth, this card is just not one of them. But yeah, guys, that is going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Share this with a friend. I'll probably tweet this video out. If I do retweet it, I would really appreciate that. If you haven't followed me on Twitter yet, follow me at Beanie, at Beanie Antics, I believe. Yeah, at Beanie Antics on Twitter. I've almost hit 1,000 followers on Twitter, which I never thought I would do. That's pretty cool. So yeah, go and follow me on Twitter. Maybe you'll be the 1,000th guy to do that. I don't know. Anyways, guys, I will see y'all later. I love y'all, but until then, peace.